everything's ended. Everything's gone back to normal. The regime has won. Of course, no statement could counter the reality on the ground. This is from the moment a week ago when the massacre started. This is disturbing. People standing there, and then they hear the attacks. Harrowing. Vile regime. On the other hand, both the United States and the state of Israel are preparing hugely. Israelis who didn't want to get involved, who still don't officially want to get involved when it comes to directly attacking Iran or doing regime change themselves, because they know that there will be a huge retaliation by the regime. They know that the Islamic Republic could do a preemptive attack. So they have drawn a red line. The Prime Minister, Netanyahu, says, if the Islamic Republic makes a mistake and attack us, we will strike Iran with force that it has never been experienced before. Whatever happens in Iran, one thing is certain: Iran will never be what it was. They know that they have to be ready. And over the last few days, over the last week or so, since that airstrike by the US was stopped last minute for good reasons, they know they had to prepare. Prepare not just for the few hundred ballistic missiles, but for the hit back, for the counterattack. Eyal Zamir has now impressed us, the head of the IDF, who has been very cautious. He didn't want to do anything with Iran. He now says that the Israeli Defense Forces are prepared to activate an offensive capability of unprecedented magnitude against any attempt to harm the state of Israel. And the IDF is also preparing for the possibility of a surprise war. Now, I'm not convinced until at this point, I am not convinced that the Islamic Republic will be able to do any preemptive attack on Israel or US bases and actually have any impact or win. I just don't see it. Even during the 12-day war, where they were apparently prepared, they had their personnel and everything else, they still struggled. We now also have just breaking news that the official numbers, the official figures of those who've been confirmed dead, obviously, pinch of salt, now says 4,029. But then they are now saying 9,049 other deaths are now still under investigation. 5,811 people are seriously injured. 26,015 people have been arrested. So every single number that I gave you, you have to add a lot of numbers to it. These are the official figures from the Islamic Republic. But even these numbers don't really help them. It's embarrassing. But it shows the weakness of the regime, that even after all these murders and all the arrests, you still have not managed to take back control of Iran. You are supposed to be the occupiers. The whole point of the Islamic occupation is occupation. What happened to your strength and your power and your Allah? Where is your Allah? Right? Now, let's talk about the United States. What are they up to? What is the latest update on the movements from the military? First things first, the USS Abraham Lincoln, the aircraft carrier, is now obviously still heading towards the Middle East, is expected to arrive between 3 to 6 days, as predicted by us over a week ago. Now, it should be getting to the CENTCOM area between the 23rd to 25th of January, depending on the transit speed and also weather and obviously positioning of the aircraft carrier, where they actually want to position. That also matters extremely. So that's that, but there is more happening, because it's not really just about the USS Abraham Lincoln, because they have to wait for it to arrive for the rest of them to also get there, but the others are also getting ready. First things first, The Americans are now ramping up airlift to the Middle East. 2 C-17As Globemasters have started to fly to Jordan to back the F-15Es, the Strike Eagles that are already deployed. They left from an RAF base in the United Kingdom. That aside, we also have this, all going towards the Middle East. 12 F-15E strike fighters, or Eagles, deployed from a Royal Air Force base in Lakenheath. And these are going towards the east. And you also have 6 KC-135 tankers, refueling tankers that have been launched from another Royal Air Force base in the United Kingdom. They will be supporting the fighter jets, the movement. And as I said, the 12 C-17A strategic airlifters have also moved into the airbase in Jordan. This also includes direct flights from Diego Garcia, as well as the United Kingdom. Additional arrivals will be coming in from other bases, including Creech AFB. Now, we'll keep an eye on the movements from the Americans. Things are escalating very quickly when it comes to the mobilization of the troops. If, first things first, the US are simply mobilizing. That's all they're doing right now. They're sending everything, and this is not really some sort of gesture. It could be a bluff, but it's not some sort of exercise, because it costs a lot of money to mobilize these guys. All of them going to the Middle East, right? Now, obviously, there could be a last-minute change. There could be a U-turn, whatever. But if the operation goes ahead, whether it's end of this week or next week or whenever it's going to happen, because by the end of this week, they should be there, right? If they use everything that they have, everything they're sending, this is going to be one of the largest operations that you've ever seen. More than what you saw in Iraq. The Iraq situation, the actual operation itself was very quick, as you guys know. When Baghdad fell, technically, to exaggerate, within minutes, everything fell apart. With Iran, you can have a situation where the actual operation, if they use everything that they have, it will be very quick, right? But having said that, it could still take days to actually see the collapse, and then of course you have to hunt down the rest of them. Now, meanwhile, there's a couple of very important things coming in from inside the regime, the complete collapse of the regime, which has happened now. Firstly, I can't take this seriously. I need to stop. The foreign minister of the Islamic Republic, Abbas Araghchi, who is looking for a foreign gig. He wants to have some sort of exit plan, right? He was going to get to Davos, the World Economic Forum, to make some new contacts, obviously with the help of Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. He got the invitation because a lot of us put pressure on the World Economic Forum. WF leadership have decided to withdraw his invitation to Davos. He was supposed to speak tomorrow on Tuesday. And the Americans are going, obviously. President Trump is going to Davos and everybody else. And they said, you're not inviting this guy. So now Abbas Araghchi is having a bit of a public meltdown. This time, I'm not exaggerating. He's having a meltdown. He says, this is the official statement. It's quite long. The World Economic Forum cancelled my appearance in Davos on the basis of lies and political pressure from Jews. And it's American proxies and apologists. I'm going to read the rest of the statement, but can I just clarify? I know Abbas Araghchi is a big fan of Candace Owens. So until recently, apparently Israel was the proxy of America. But now, America is the proxy of Israel. How does that happen? That is very impressive. On the other hand, let's go back to the statement. He says, there is one fundamental truth to the recent violence in Iran. We had to defend our people against armed terrorists and ISIS killings, openly backed by Mossad. The sad irony, Israel's genocide of Palestinians and mass slaughter of 71,000 innocent people have not compelled the WEF to cancel any invitation extended to Israeli officials whatsoever. They always have to mention Palestine. Yep. In fact, Herzog even did a victory lap in Davos as early as January 2024, even as he faced criminal charges in Switzerland for the unfolding genocide in Gaza. If the World Economic Forum wants to feign a supposedly moral stance, that it's a prerogative, but it should at least be consistent about it. The current blatant double standards only conveys the moral depravity and intellectual bankruptcy. People have the right to show the truth and judge for themselves. Shame is solely reserved for those who think otherwise. Candace Owens did nothing wrong. I added the last bit. But yeah, so that's Abbas Araghchi literally crying over the fact that he can't go to Davos tomorrow. I mean, seriously. Also, since when did war become genocide? For the record, what happened in Gaza was not genocide, and what's happening in Iran is also not genocide. There are a lot of people going to say, oh, genocide in Iran. No, it's a slaughter, it's massacre, not genocide. There's a very specific definition for genocide, and it's not just about the action. It requires intent and planning. Oh, anyway, people are obsessed with the word genocide. Stop it, genocide. It's not an easy thing to do. You need to be smart and competent if you want to do genocide. Having said that, oh dear God, so there is a bit of a problem right now because as we reported this a few days ago, the former president of the Islamic Republic of Iran, Rouhani, and his former foreign minister, Zarif, have been arrested by the regime. Now, this was a very dramatic update that we got. First, this was just hearsay and rumors, right? I need to find something for you guys because I have now completely lost it. Let me get this sorted. Essentially, what they have done, Rouhani, the former president, and the foreign minister were arrested under house arrest over the last few days, over the last week or so, I think. We did get the confirmation that that is in fact true. There we go. Okay, it's ready now. The media have now confirmed this. Even the Israelis are now confirming this. Channel 14 of Israel has now reported this. Let me show you what we're dealing with. What is going on with this? Apologies for this, because this is supposed to be a lot smoother than what we're dealing with right now. I'm going to put on the report from the... There we go. Okay, now we're ready. Thank God for that. Okay. From the Israeli Channel 14, saying that those two were arrested because they were in touch with the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. And it's highly likely, highly likely, because the arrest has been confirmed. And these guys are now in huge trouble. Let's go to Channel 14, the report.
המחאות באיראן דעכו, אבל הן הותירו הרבה סימני שאלה וחשפו כמה מהחולשות של המשטר הקיצוני. בימים האחרונים יצאו דיווחים לא רשמיים באיראן על כך שחסן רוחני, נשיא איראן לשעבר, וחברו הטוב ג'וואד זריף, שר החוץ לשעבר, נעצרו על ידי כוחות הביטחון ונלקחו למעצר בית. והיום אנחנו מפרסמים לראשונה מה הייתה סיבת המעצר. נודע לנו שבימים האחרונים זריף שוחח כמה פעמים, אם לא אחר, מאשר מוביל המחאה נגד המשטר, ביורש העצר האיראני הגולה רזה פהלוי. זריף, ככל הנראה, שיתף את תוכן השיחה עם חברו הטוב רוחני. השניים שגם כך בסכסוך מתמשך עם ההנהגה הנוכחית, כנראה נמצאים תחת פיקוח הדוק מצד משמרות המהפכה, וזו כנראה הסיבה שהם נתפסו. השניים הם חלק מהזרם הרפורמיסטי, הזרם הפחות שמרני קיצוני במדינה. הם ידועים בניסיון תמידי של התקרבות למערב. לא מן הנמנע שהנשיא הנוכחי מסעוד פזשקיאן, שנחשב גם הוא למתון יחסית, היה אמור לקבל עדכון על המגעים. חשוב לציין, פזשקיאן מקורב מאוד לשניים, והוא נחשב לבן הטיפוחים שלהם. קשה לדעת אם תוכן השיחה היה על עריקה מהמשטר האיראני ועל הקמת ממשלה חלופית עם פהלוי, אך עצם העובדה שבכירים בהנהגה האיראנית מחפשים מקום מפלט, מלמדת שהמשטר הנוכחי באיראן מעורר, ואולי גורלו נחרץ.
This is so embarrassing. It's embarrassing for everybody involved right now. Embarrassing for Rouhani and Zarif, former president and foreign minister, for getting caught like idiots because they were talking to the crown prince. It's embarrassing for the Islamic Republic for allowing this to happen. It's embarrassing for the current president.
So I just want to say, I'm with you guys. I don't know if this is true. I feel like, because remember, Armin and I, we spoke about this news earlier a few days ago, and we said that this could be an Islamic regime plot to try and make it seem as if Rouhani and Javad Zarif are, are fighting against the regime, because then what the regime would do is then they would then push them forward as, oh, look, these are the freedom fighters, right? They're fighting the regime, right? So that's why, like, I'm not buying this story. It doesn't pass the sniff test, right? It doesn't pass a sniff test. It almost seems as if, like, they're trying to separate them so that instead of revolution, it's going to be reform. So yeah, I mean, that's how I see it. That's how I see it. So that's my political analysis on this. But I mean, Tusi's right to report on this, because this is being broadcast on Israel Channel 14. But I don't know. Like, I just, given my knowledge of the regime and how it works, this seems like another internal plot. So that's just my take on this. But Armin and I spoke about this like a few days ago.
Pezeshkian, who is also supposed to be a reformist. By the way, they are technically more liberal-minded, less conservative reformists, but they are still part of the regime. It's not like they're some sort of like freedom fighters or believe in democracy. They just have slight differences with Khomeini, but they're still the same. And they know that Pezeshkian has now been basically called out by by Channel 14 of Israel. He and his team are now going to be panicking massively because the regime are now going to be keeping an eye on Pezeshkian, the current president, and anybody involved. The fact that these conversations have taken place, allegedly, it also shows there are so many others at the top of the regime who are basically defecting or trying to have conversations. They know it's over. They know. In their defense, benefit of the doubt, okay, to be nice about it, the Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi did offer them this. A lot of people in the regime. He'd said for months, since the 12-day war, get in touch with us. We'll get in touch with you. Repent. You will face justice. But if you help us, obviously, then depending on what sort of crimes you had, then you will have to face your sentences, but then you can be part of the new Iran. So, and a lot of these guys were like, okay, so we can get in touch because we didn't really do much. We had to. We were part of the government. You know, my job was just being foreign minister. You know, I didn't really kill many. I just killed 5. You know, maybe 6. So this was the offer on the table. The fact that these idiots got caught. Why couldn't you get like a satellite phone or something? Like, I don't know what they were doing. Meanwhile, there is the latest statement from the king of Iran, incoming king of Iran, Reza Pahlavi, Reza Shah II. He now says the Islamic regime right now is on its last leg. It is on the verge of collapse. It's going to attempt every other means to yet again survive. He says, that's why a definitive strike is going to completely reverse the odds in favor of the nation and defenseless people. That's why we need, in terms of actual support. He also says, this strike, it could be an American strike, it could be an Israeli strike, it could be whatever. The Iranian people now are looking at the cavalry coming because we can only hold the fort up to a point. Now, the reality is, even if somehow there is a decision for whatever reason for any attack by Israel or the US to not happen, which is fair enough, it could happen, it could be cancelled, then things won't go back to normal. The Crown Prince is correct that The people can hold the fort for so long, but what you're going to end up having is Iran will just become a land of anarchy, as it is now. It will be partly North Korea, partly Libya, in a sense that there will be a few thousand people who are just going to walk around claiming to have martial law. They don't have enough people, obviously, to do that, but they can like control the key areas, right? The rest of the country, you won't really have a functioning government. Basically, what's happening now, but long term, which means that the collapse will happen anyway. It will just be slightly longer. Eventually, people from the military who haven't even defected yet, they realize that, well, this isn't working. Khamenei is probably going to die anyway, if somehow the strike don't happen in the next week or so. So this is where we are now, and things are not going to go back to the relatively stable dictatorship that they had. Kevin says, how are the Kurdish, Azeris, Baluch, and other rebels? So unfortunately, we're not getting any updates in terms of the internet from those areas, much lack of internet, but the reports that are coming in says that they are still fighting, especially the Kurdish side. The Kurdish side are not giving up, and the Baluch as well in the southeast, and they're all calling for a united Iran. They're all calling for the return of the Crown Prince. So the regime have basically somehow managed to unite all these separatist groups. Some of these groups wanted to basically go different ways. They wanted to have their own countries. Now they want to be part of a united Iran. Thank you, Islamic Republic. We've been trying to do that. You are so handsome. True. And your wit makes me fall out of my wheelchair. Trump sent in the B-2 bombers. Thanks for the news coverage. CBS will not give us. No, don't send in the B-2 bombers. That was the plan last week. B-2 bombers are not going to be enough. That's why the president had to make the U-turn last minute. B-2 bombers are not going to do much because it's good for destruction, but it's not really good for targeted, detailed operations. So you need to be able to have the maneuver, even if that means that they would at some point have to use something, whether it's parachute or helicopters, to go and drop people in to do something specific, whether it's to arrest someone, pick them up, or assassinate them and come back up. You don't necessarily need boots on the ground in that sense, like Iraq. You don't need that, but you do need a wide range of different types of fighter jets and everything else, and there's obviously support, refueling tankers and everything else, and have a base, which will be hopefully USS Abraham Lincoln, in the water, so they could keep going and coming back. That will be much easier than using any of the Arab territories, whether it's Qatar, Bahrain, or whatever, or Saudi Arabia. You won't have to rely on those scaredy cats. I love the IDF. They have such unkempt uniforms. Even the officers, he tells me that they are fighting for all the survival of sanity. Thank you, Israel, says Libel. Arash, thank you. Holly says, long live a free Iran. Long live King Pahlavi. Yeah, you have to get ready to calling in, to call him King Reza now, soon, very soon. King Reza. Everyone's in Israel. Everyone in Israel, what? Already told to buy groceries for months by our government today. So that's the thing. So the preparations are already happening in Israel. Precautions for a big event. Now, it is good that the Israelis are getting ready. And again, I can't advise any sort of military because you don't have the intel. I don't have the intel. But my instinct still says, unless the Islamic Republic have some weapons that we haven't seen, maybe the last few months they managed to do some weird nonsense, I just don't see how a few hundred ballistic missiles could destroy Israel. Now, obviously, the Israeli government is correct to tell people to stock up very quietly, very orderly. Shelters are ready and everything else, because you don't want people, because the Iranian regime are going to hit residential buildings in Tel Aviv and other places. You don't want people to be in their bedrooms or living rooms when this happens. And you need to have enough food and equipment and water in your shelters. Just have all the cans, tins, whatever. So it's good to do that. But I don't think, again, my instinct says, Israelis, you won't have to be in your shelters for too long. Won't have to be. If the Iranian regime does hit, that's just going to accelerate the operation by both the US and the IDF. So they're both going to go in, they're going to destroy the whole thing, and you can come out, hopefully, within a few days, compared to the 12-day war, which could have continued even longer without the regime actually completely collapsing. That was the problem with the 12-day war, because there was no plan from the Israeli side long term. There was the initial plan for the first day. Okay, we know what to do. We're going to take out the generals. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then they continued. Yeah, the regime could have been easily paralyzed, but they would have still had enough to just about survive and hit back.